And our top story this hour tracks the United States and North Korea. U.S. President Donald Trump will hold a second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un in late February. However, U.S. will maintain economic sanctions on Pyongyang. The location of the meeting between Kim and Trump has not been revealed yet. The announcement was made by White House after Trump met Pyongyang's top nuclear negotiator Kim Jong-chol.
Look, we've continued to make progress. We're continuing to have conversations. The United States is going to continue to keep pressure and sanctions on North Korea until we see fully and verified denuclearization. We've had very good steps in good faith from the North Koreans in releasing the hostages and other moves. And so we're going to continue those conversations. And the president looks forward to his next meeting.
The summit was announced despite the fact that there has been no indication of any narrowing of differences over U.S. demands that North Korea abandon its nuclear weapons program. Last year, the first summit produced a vague commitment by Kim Jong Un to work towards the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. But he has yet to take what Washington sees as concrete steps in that direction. Meanwhile, South Korea has welcomed a planned second summit between U.S. and North Korea, saying that it expects the summit to serve as a turning point towards permanent peace on the Korean peninsula. Kim Kyom, a spokesman at South Korea's presidential office, said that South Korea will spare no efforts for a successful outcome of the planned second summit between Trump and Kim by closely cooperating with the U.S. and holding more talks with North Korea. And to bring us more details and add perspective to this news story, I'm joined in by our correspondent Bruce Harrison, who joins me live from Seoul. Bruce, a very warm welcome. Now, the Singapore summit between Kim and Trump was historic yet vague. What can we expect to emerge out of a second summit, and what are the potential locations under consideration at the moment?
Well, that is the big question. The first summit has yielded little results on maybe the only thing that came out of it, a vague promise to remove nuclear weapons from the Korean peninsula. But as I said, little progress has been made on that front. And we haven't heard from the U.S. or North Korea specifics about what they would plan to discuss at this second summit between Trump and Kim Jong Un. But there has been growing speculation, especially among the analyst community, that the U.S. may be slowly drifting away from its initial position, and that is that North Korea give up everything on the front end. It gives up a list of its nuclear weapons arsenal as well as all related facilities. What could North Korea offer at this point that would allow the U.S. to make such a concession? Perhaps some of its intercontinental ballistic missiles. It's hard to say. Kim Jong Un has made it very clear that he thinks he's already taken great steps. He destroyed a nuclear testing grounds, he sidelined some missile testing, and now he expects the U.S. to act in reciprocation. So that stalemate is still there. Really, everyone's watching to see what could happen next. As far as the summit, there's been a lot of speculation in the press that Vietnam could be that location. Reports that Kim Jong Un will take a state visit there after the Lunar New Year holiday, ending February 8th. Whether or not that is rolled into a summit with President Trump, it's unconfirmed.
Right. Bruce, but, taking forward what you said, are those steps concrete enough as what Washington would like to say? I'd like to mention this report by two U.S. analysts that stated that North Korea is systematically hiding the sites of missile development. The hide and develop strategy has helped North Korea accelerate its nuclear program under Kim Jong Un's rule. How can Washington ensure Pyongyang to take more solid measures in terms of complete denuclearization, even if that includes intrusive inspection of these sites?
Well, just as you said, yeah, it can't be sure unless there is an open door for international inspectors to come into the country to see what their remaining nuclear arsenal and related facilities look like. It's hard for Washington to trust North Korea because these talks have broken down many times before. But back to those reports you mentioned. The first came out, I believe, last year about a number of weapon sites that hadn't been disclosed, but there was no promise from the Kim government to disclose those. And both Seoul and Washington at that time said this is not going to hinder the process we're well aware North Korea has these weapons still, but our intelligence authorities knew where they were. So it's not an impending threat. And then the most recent report that Kim Jong Un was visiting these sites. Once again, the man never promised not to do that. It was not part of the negotiations in Singapore. I think both sides still want to press forward, well knowing that there are a lot of weapons in North Korea. Ultimately, we'll have to see what happens in February. If they do, in fact, meet, 6 weeks is a long time. Neither side wants to come away with a vague statement again. That can't be claimed as a success by anybody.
Right. Neither side can come up with a vague statement. And also, it's important to point out how 2018 began with war threats coming in from Washington for Pyongyang and Washington. At the same time, 2019 looks more hopeful. But is a complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula actually an option for Kim Jong Un?
Unlikely based on what we've seen from the young North Korean leader so far. Despite the promises he's made at summits with President Trump and South Korean President Moon Jae-in, we're no closer to actually giving up those weapons. And you hear more and more reports from different South Korean analysts and editorials in newspapers here that there may be a time where you have to admit that living with a nuclear-armed North Korea is perhaps the only option. A peaceful coexistence here on the peninsula. And those are just the opinions of some. By and large, the international community, as well as the leadership of South Korea, ostensibly wants to get rid of those nuclear weapons. The South Korean leader here as well ultimately would like to create a path for unification, to bring the Koreas together. But until the U.S. and North Korea can hash out their differences and continue negotiations on the nuclear weapons, we won't see any of that.
Right. On a last note, Bruce, I'd like you to focus a bit on the Chinese rollout here. At the time of an ongoing trade war, can U.S. and China set aside their differences to disarm North Korea? U.S. and China's African nuclear mission to remove uranium from Nigeria could provide a model for disarming North Korea. Don't you think so?
Well, we've seen similar templates for that in the past, but North Korea simply isn't willing to budge. They still ultimately see the United States as a grave threat to their sovereignty, to the government that exists in Pyongyang. Kim Jong Un, as far as we know, is very fearful of being removed from power. And until he has very, very firm guarantees of his safety, his regime's safety, and the sovereignty of his nation, there's no way he's going to simply hand over the fissile material he needs to build nuclear weapons and the nuclear weapons he's already obtained.
All right, so tread cautiously out there is the message that U.S. and North Korea hold for each other at the moment. Thank you so much, Bruce, for joining us here live on Wion.